Okay, this is just a look at the new Nikon P7100. This is what it looks like. This is in auto mode. You have the tilt screen. It can tilt down or it can tilt up to take pictures from above. Okay. Now you have auto mode. You have P mode, which is program. S mode, which is shutter. A mode, which is aperture. And M mode, which is manual. The most flexible to use is M mode, manual, because you have more control over every aspect of the camera. For instance, in manual mode, you could change the aperture, which you see on the bottom of the screen changing, f4.5, f5, f6, and the dial in the front, this is a new dial right here. That could change the shutter. So then you're going to see 1/800th of a second, 640, 500, all the way down to, let's see how far it goes. I think it's 1/30th. Yes, and it goes to 1/60th. Now it goes to 60 seconds. So you could actually leave the exposure to expose for 60 seconds. Let me bring it back to a normal shutter, around 125. Okay. Most of the time I shoot in A, aperture mode, because it's a lot faster. I don't have to worry about getting the correct exposure. And I'm just playing with the aperture, which starts at the 28mm end starts at 2.8. But if you zoom in, this is a adjustable aperture, so the f-stop is going to go higher, which means the lens is not going to be as fast. So if you zoom all the way out to 200mm, your f-stop is going to now be 5.6. So you have to take that into consideration if you're thinking about buying this camera. Alright, to continue with the modes, you have video mode, which is movie mode it's called, which is very standard. The camera doesn't even have a record button. You have to put it manually from the dial onto movie mode. Then you have to press the shutter button and then it's going to start recording. And then press the shutter button again to stop recording. And it records in 720p, which is not so bad. I wasn't so impressed with the video of this camera. So if you're thinking about buying a camera for video, I honestly wouldn't recommend this camera. Go with like the Sony NEX5 or something that's a much better quality. Then you have the scene modes, which are pretty interesting. And the way you go into the scene modes is you press the menu button. Then you're going to have here scene auto selector, portrait when you're taking pictures of people, landscape, sports, night portrait, party indoor, beach, snow, sunset, dusk to dawn, night landscape, close up, food, museum, fireworks show, black and white copy, backlighting, panorama assist, and pet portrait. Alright, two things to point out. Panorama assist, the camera comes with the basic software, and it has an extra program in there for the panorama assist. I haven't tried it yet, but it seems to be okay. And the backlighting, this is where you go into the HDR mode. Right now it's off. You see when you click to the next option, you have HDR on and you just press OK, and then you're in the HDR mode. And the others are pretty self-explanatory. Let's go to the next one. Low noise night mode. That's when you're in low light situations. You put it with that. I guess that gives it a slower shutter speed. So you would have to really have it on a tripod or a table or a study surface. Then you have effects. This is also pretty good. You would have the same thing, press menu, and you go into special effects, and you have creative monochrome, which is really, really nice. You have painting, zoom exposure. Let me try to get this straight. Defocus during exposure, cross process, soft, nostalgic sepia, high key, low key, and selective color. So creative monochrome, press OK. Now we're in creative monochrome. And you see with that, you see these two rows on the side. With the rear wheel, it controls the contrast. And with the front wheel, you're going to control the left side, which gives it a lot more grain or less grain to make it cleaner, which is really nice. I sort of like shooting in this mode, and then you could do it waist level, so it's sort of like the old time medium format cameras. So it's pretty cool for what it is. Okay, going back to the settings, you have U3, U2, and U1, which are presets. You could preset whatever settings you want. If you notice, when I have U1, it zooms in more. U2, I have it set to wider zoom, and U3 even wider. That's another good thing about this camera. Let me show you. I'll put it in aperture, 'cause that's what I usually shoot in. When you have aperture, when you have two function buttons. You have one here, and then you have one on top of the camera right here. When you press the front function button and you press the lever, the zoom lever, you could preset it to put to the millimeters, the focal length that you want. So I have the front button pressed, and I go like this. Oh wait, because it's out all the way. I'm starting from 28 millimeters. I press the function button, and I go like that, and I had it set to 35. You see 35 there. Then again, and I had it set to 85. Then it's to 85. So it's very fast. If you're out in the street and you know you want a certain focal length, you could just press the function button and obtain that focal length in a matter of a second. This side, we have the ISO, the raw ability, the white balance, and the bracketing. I'll just go through it quickly. First, if you press the top button, it goes to the setting that it's on. So this is going to bring me to the ISO. See, then you have ISO sensitivity, and then on the bottom here, you could just put it in auto. You have high ISO sensitivity. That's more for shooting at night. Auto ISO 1 to 200. 1 to 400, that's what I usually keep it at. Then if you want to keep it on an actual ISO, you have 100, 200, 400, 800, 1600, 3200, and high 1, which would be 6400, which is a little grainy. I usually keep it on ISO 1 to 400, and it goes by itself according to the light coming into the camera. You could have the minimum shutter speed that you want. You have 1/2, a quarter, 1/15, 1/30, 1/60, 125th. So that I keep off. The next thing we have is image quality. You have normal. Let me start from the beginning. Raw and JPEG basic, raw and JPEG normal, raw and JPEG fine. Then you have just basic JPEG, normal JPEG, and fine JPEG. Another good thing about this camera is I have it set to the function button again. See, when I press this front function button, it's here. When you press this button, you're going to see here is going to come up raw. So that means if I know it may be an important shot or something that I want to keep, I'm going to set up my camera like I want, then I press the function button, and right there I have it shooting in RAW, which is also a really great feature.